Welcome to Being Humankind with your hosts Brian, Mike, and Neely. We explore what it means to be human in a time of disconnection.
What's the greatest lesson that you've learned that didn't come from a book or wasn't explicitly taught to you by another person?
Besides not to grab a live wire when installing a outlet.
You learned that one by experience,
I
huh?
learned that one. Everybody in the room knew that I learned that that lesson. Who? Yeah, so this actually, I've talked about this in a couple of presentations, and this lesson got me through COVID in 2020, which I can't really complain about. I was an essential worker. My wife was working from home. It really didn't affect us other than my kids, who my daughter has a learning disability and she's struggling in school, and this was hard, and she's working through it. But when my second one was born, she was 6 weeks old, and somehow she had gotten a rash on her face, and we went to get it checked. And while I was driving to work, I got a call from her doctor saying, like, go home, get her, take her to Children's Hospital now. And he said, like, take her to the ER. I'm calling them. And so we rushed. This was in 2017. So we rushed, and basically he said, like, all right, she might have this infection. It might be in her spinal cord. If it's in her spinal cord, we have a really, really bad problem here. It could be fatal. Tell your wife to go over there. You're coming with me. And, they brought me into the room, and, I had to compress my 6-week-old daughter so that they could give her a spinal tap on the fly. And it was just like the worst thing I've ever seen. And luckily, they didn't find it in the spinal cord. So they said, like, you have two options here. You can treat her as if she had it. That's the safe play, which means you're here for at least 2 weeks, or you can take her home and we'll see how things progress and do that. And, I was fresh at a new job, lightning bolt hit out of the, you don't know what you're going to do. Luckily, a dear friend of mine who's a Mason is also a doctor in virology, and happened to be like one of the leading experts on this disease. So I called him from the ER, and it was incredible. He was just like, he knew the treatment already, and he's like, Ryan, this is what you're going to do. Think about what you're going to do. Is your job worth this? And, looking back, I'm like, why didn't I obviously just do this? But you're in shock when it happens. You have no idea what you're doing. So we ended up treating her. My new boss was amazing. He just said, like, why are you calling me? Like, get in there. Which is one of the reasons why I'm sticking with this job, is the respect my boss gave me. But while I was in there, we were in the room on this floor, and Boston Children's Hospital is this amazing place where, like, you see the worst and the best in the world, and I remember, my wife would take turns and I to go down into the calf to just eat dinner, and people there just want to talk. They're there, and I remember sitting down at a table, and there wasn't a lot of room, and there was another woman there, and I sat down, and she just very cheerfully, hey, how you doing? How's everybody? And I kind of explained her the situation, and she said, like, yeah, we've been here 9 months, and she started telling me what was going on, and like, you knew she wasn't leaving, and it's really, really hard to talk to that woman, but it was great at the same time. It was just like an amazingly human moment that I remember. And, we laughed, we joked, we joked about like some of the situations here. And, she had this moment of like release, I guess. And it was a really cool moment. And, at the same day, we found out that the girl who was like the next door over was going home. And, her mom was like a ball of joy. And, dad was ready to go. He's got the car seat. And I'm like, so, if you don't mind me asking, what was cost? You go, oh, she was born without a sternum. I was like, what? Like, no bone on her chest. Then they fixed it. I'm like, okay, it's pretty incredible. And that whole experience of the 2 weeks was, I'd meet guys who would come in and just hold kids. That's what they would do. And, I met this guy who was like clearly full of money, had more money he could possibly do with. And that's what he did. He sat with kids and held them so their parents could take a nap. And it was a really eye-opening experience, because I remember talking to my wife after we got home and just looking at each other saying, I will never complain about another thing in my life. And when COVID hit, we had friends. I wouldn't say friends. We had acquaintances that, we went to college with or something. We haven't seen them in years, and no intention of seeing. They live on the other side of the country and whatnot. And they're just complaining about like being stuck at home with their kids during COVID. And the only thing that I could think of is that was heaven on earth for all those people who are stuck in that hospital. And it just really struck me. I'm like, I have not complained about a thing since that. Like, my kid has a cold. Who the hell am I to complain about a cold? There are so many people in this world who wish they could hold their kids throwing up in the toilet. It's a part of life, and you should embrace it. And there is no way in hell you could have taught me that lesson in a book or in a story or anything like that. It was an emotionally raw, almost religious experience when I look back at it as a whole.
Wow, thank you. I know, like, my daughter had open heart surgery at Boston Children's at 3 months old, so I get what you're saying. Like, totally. Like, that place, we were supposed to go to Mass General, and we decided the last minute not to because they were jerks. And like Boston Children's, like, I don't know if my daughter would be alive today if it wasn't for them. So
it also awoke me to, like, I had very few like idols in my life growing up. And one of them, even though he didn't really play while I was alive, it was just like, I grew up as a Boston sports fan, and Bobby Orr was like, God sent to America. Like, the Lord spoketh, and Bobby Orr came. And the guy that elderly man who I was telling you about, who clearly had money, he would just tell me, he goes like, Bobby Orr wouldn't tell anybody, but he would just like come from a game to just say hi to the kids. And I'm like, it's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible what that type of trauma and pain can do in the name of good too. Like, there's a ramification that can come from these horrible situations where the absolute best of people can be brought out at the same time. And that's another thing that's kind of stuck with me, especially now with all the crap happening in the world. Like, right now, all the BS that is just flowing. Like, people forget that out of these moments, the best moments in human history come. We just got to be ready to accept it and support it and look for it, even if people are trying to make sure we don't see it.